of the story project. She's Scottish, and so she's got this natural Scottish storytelling thing. You know, Sean Connery. She's a technical writer. She's a Shambhala Buddhist. Let's hear it for Elaine Logan.
Hello. Hello, I hope you're all comfortable out there. Some of us should be. Okay, we're going to just jump right in here, okay? All right, let's hear it. Billy Everett and I met at the movies in 1962. My mother was an usherette. Now this was in Scotland, you understand, Rosyth, Scotland. And my mother was an usherette at the Palace Picture House, Rosyth. And my mother, she wore green overall and she marched up and down the aisles in the darkness, carrying a tray with Kaya Ora orange juice and ice cream tubs. And she had a flashlight to show people to their seats, and also for on Saturday afternoons when the kids were getting noisy. Now, Billy's mother had a square shape, and she always wore a red coat, raspberry red with a raspberry slash of lipstick on her mouth, and her brown hair was crimped tight around her face, and her skin on her face was kind of tightly drawn and a little slack under the chin. I never spoke to her myself, but she was a striking looking woman.
Yeah.
So every Saturday afternoon I would go to the back row, and that's where we sat because we got in for free because our mothers worked in the picture house. And so Billy would be there, and Billy was a skinny, dark-haired little kid with fair skin and freckles. But before I go to the picture house, here's what I would do. I would go over to Smith's, the greengrocers, and I get them to cut me a half a melon. And they would take the seeds out of it, and then I would get this green half melon, and I would take it back with me. And the women in the greengrocers also had green overalls. So I would take this over, and I would go over to the movie theatre, and there at the candy kiosk, for a shilling, I could buy a packet of Pancho's chocolate raisins. That's fun. Pancho's chocolate raisins. So then I would go in, and Billy and I, we sat in the back row, and the back row was traditionally the place for the courting couples. Because if you're in the back row, nobody could see you. And behind could see you while you were snuggling and, snogging and necking and so forth. But Billy and I, we sat there just because we were on for free, but we did watch a lot of kissing in the movies. And there was kissing, in fact, actually happened. And I think it was Billy's idea. So we're watching this John Wayne movie, and John Wayne is rushing after feisty Maureen O'Hara, and he reaches out and he pulls her arm and he catches her. He pulls her in towards him and he leans her back until the only thing that's holding her up is John Wayne's hand under her back. And he pulls her toward him and he kisses her. And Billy says to me, "Let's do that." And I'm like, not entirely sure, but okay, let's do it real fast and sudden like they do it in the movies. So we zoomed in on each other real fast with a big heavy lip lock. And then we sat back and watched the rest of the movie. Well, we were only 8 years old. It was you tried, it wasn't, you know. To me, it looked a lot more fun than it felt. So, that was fun. So sometimes after the movies, we would go up the hill. Now, near the Palace Picture House, there's a hill. And on this hill, there's these posh houses, you know, posh houses where the doctors live and so forth. And the garage owners, auto mechanic owners, yes. And so there's this piece of this ground was just waste ground, and it was all long grass and wildflowers and air raid shelters and broken bricks. Ideal place for kids. And so we went up there and we had a wonderful time, and we just, you know, we just ran back and forth up the hill. Mostly was what we did, and and we had a sophistication from the movies, so we thought of each other as boyfriend and girlfriend. And here's how that happened. So we're sitting at the top of the hill, and Billy, and he looks kind of serious to me. He looks at me all serious, and he says, "Elaine, would you like to be my girlfriend?" And I'm thinking about it, and I'm not entirely sure. But I said, "Sure." And Billy says, "And I would be your boyfriend. I could be your boyfriend." And I say, "Fair dues then. Let's run down the hill." So we ran down the hill. You know, the way you do. I ran down the hill, and Billy ran down the hill after me. So that was us, you know, and it made us feel like we were more like those people in the movies because we were boyfriend and girlfriend. But as I say, it wasn't that we really did anything in a boyfriend-girlfriend sense. Billy was my first boyfriend, but we were good friends. We had a good time. So, time went on. Billy's mother stopped working at the movie theatre, and I kept going to the Smiths, the greengrocers, and getting my Pancho's chocolate raisins and my melon, and I would just go in there and sit there, and Billy wasn't there anymore, and that was that. So that went on for a few more years, and I got older. I went from primary school to junior high school to Dunfermline High School, and in the process of that, I developed a science of boys.
That's what you said.
So acceptable boys were three things. Acceptable boys were high school boys, not the boys who went to the King's Road School, the trade school. Acceptable boys also were 2 years older than me, which was the appropriate age. And acceptable boys, either that or they just had to have long hair. So around about this time, I'm about 16 by this age, I'm fully matured. And I'm spending my Saturday afternoons now, I'm spending my Saturday afternoons stacking shelves in the supermarket, Lowe's supermarket. Now, I remember two people from there, Jimmy, who used to work at the meat counter, he always made me laugh, and he was like, oh, must have been about 25 years old, he was pretty old. And it's always the cute guys at the meat counter are always the cute guys. Irene had blonde hair and blue eyeshadow and black spidery mascara. And to me, Jimmy and Irene were the epitome of grown-upness. So one day, Irene comes back and she tells me, there's someone here to see you. So I went out, and there, in the canned vegetable aisle, in all his glory, was Billy Everett. And I looked at him and I didn't recognize him. And he was wearing a denim jacket and he had a dark, shiny, short, spiky hair. And he looked fine. There was really nothing wrong with how he looked. So he says to me, "Hi Elaine, it's Billy Everett. Do you remember me from the Palace Picture House, Saturday afternoons?" So, "Hiya Billy. Hi, it's been a while. I haven't seen you around. How have you been?" And so Billy says to me, "Well, I'm going to the King's Road School now. I'm going to the King's Road School, but I'm getting out of there next year. I'm going to join the army." "Oh, really? Why is that?" Well, I wasn't too impressed with people joining the army because boys in the army had to have their hair cut so short they looked almost bald. And for me, as I said, hair is a boy prerequisite. So Billy says, "Well, you know, it's a man's life in this man's army. Join the army and see the world, that's what I fancy doing. And I fancy asking you out. Would you like to come out tonight, or maybe some other time, or we could go see a flick together?" No. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I felt very embarrassed. Billy was looking kind of nervous, you know, he was sort of looking at his feet and kept his hands in his pocket. And I pulled some cans of tomato soup to the front of the aisle, like Irene had trained me. And I looked at Billy Everett and I didn't know why he was here. He looked like somebody that had nothing to do with me. He looked like somebody from another planet. I had all kinds of ideas about boys and romance, and none of them looked like Billy Everett. So Billy says, "Oh, well then." And I turned away. He looked at me, all confusion in his eyes, but I turned away. And I marched right back to the staff room and I breathed a sigh of relief. Billy Everett didn't come back again. He didn't ever come by again and ask me out, and I was very happy about that. And he was fine. He was such a fine young guy, and there was nothing wrong with him. But to me, he was scary. To me, Billy Everett just looked so scary. And the idea of dating someone outside of my fantasy life repelled me. So a few years went by. Meantime, I'm going to Aberdeen University, and I come back on the weekends to stay with my mother. And I'm sitting there one Saturday afternoon in my mother's house, and she says to me, "Did you hear about Billy Everett then? Did you hear that he committed suicide? He jumped off the Forth Road Bridge." Now the Forth Road Bridge is about 2 miles south of Rosyth, and it's a mile high above the water. So if Billy jumped off that, he would have died when he hit the water, when his head hit the water. And I says to my mother, "Did he ever join the army?" And she says, "Aye, yes, he went to Ireland, he went to Northern Ireland, he went to Ulster. His mother's in a real bad way." I said, "His mother? Well, she's still alive then. I always thought she was real old." Well, that was just one of those conversations that happened. And then life went on. And now I live in America, here decades down the road, in a world that Billy Everett couldn't have imagined. And I know what it feels like to have looked into the bleak waters of aloneness on a Saturday afternoon. I know what it feels like to have stood in front of some man who looks at me like I was from another planet, who looks at me as if to say, what have you got to do with me? I know what it feels like to look into the future and not see the future. So Billy Everett, I wrote this for Billy Everett. Not because I think that he and I could have saved each other, or we could have lived happily ever after or anything, but because I'm not that judging, tongue-tied 16-year-old anymore. Because I think I could have said thank you to Billy Everett in some way. I could have looked at Billy Everett and I could have said, "Hiya, Billy. Hey, I remember Saturday afternoons. I remember going up the hill with you. You were my first boyfriend." Sure, I could have still said no. But I could have looked at Billy Everett and said, "Hello. Thank you for asking me out." Yeah, a big part of me thought I had grown out of Billy Everett. But a big part of me realized that I hadn't. A big part of me remembered a sticky melon-flavored kiss. A big part of me remembered running down the hill with Billy running behind me. And a big part of me remembered what it feels like to have a friend on a Saturday afternoon.